All right, I know what you're probably thinking. Solar inverter standards? Sounds like a total snooze fest, right? But what if I told you that hidden inside that boring-sounding topic is one of the biggest and sneakiest shifts in property rights we've seen in a long time? Yeah, it's all happening inside that little metal box on the side of your house.
So you've got this box on your wall, the solar inverter. It's basically the brain of your whole solar setup, right? It takes the juice from your panels and turns it into power you can actually use. Simple enough. But here's the thing. The rule book for what goes inside that box has been completely rewritten. And that begs a huge question. Why?
And this quote, man, it just nails it. They want it to look boring. I mean, you call something UL 1741 Supplement B, and who's going to pay attention? It's the perfect camouflage. It's designed to make your eyes glaze over. But, and this is the important part, when you actually start digging into what those words mean, a whole different story comes out.
So to really get what's changed, we've got to go back in time a little bit. We need to look at how these things used to work. Let's talk about the old standard because, honestly, it was a pretty brilliant piece of engineering.
The whole idea behind the old standard was something called autonomous safety. The best way to think about it is like a reflex. You know, you touch something hot and your hand shoots back instantly. You don't stop and think about it, your body just reacts. Well, that's exactly how this old standard, UL 1741 SA, was designed to work. It just reacted to the physics of the power grid all on its own, no questions asked.
And you know what? It worked like a charm. These inverters could feel when the grid was getting a little shaky, and they just instantly adjust to help stabilize things. We're talking about preventing blackouts here. But the really, really important thing to get is that they did this all by themselves. They were private air-gapped machines. They didn't have to phone home to the utility company for permission. The safety was just built right in.
Okay, so if the old system works so well, I mean, it literally solved the safety problem it was designed for, why on earth would you change it? And this, my friends, is where the story takes a major turn. Let's look at the new standard because it creates a whole new world.
So the new standard, UL 1741 SB, is all about this one fancy word, interoperability. Sounds nice and friendly, right? Like everyone's working together? But let's cut through the jargon. In plain English, it means your inverter is no longer just a reflex machine reacting to physics. Nope. Now it's required to have a live, two-way radio link, listening for commands from the utility.
I mean, look at this. The difference is just night and day. We're going from autonomous safety to, well, the source material calls it centralized subservience. It's a huge shift. We're going from reacting to physics to obeying commands. From a private machine in your home to a device that's constantly connected and can be controlled from afar. It's a fundamental change in what that box on your wall even is. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical argument. This is real. When you do a forensic deep dive into the technical standards, you find the actual mechanisms for this control. The proof is right there.
Seriously. You dig down into the weeds, into the byte-level definitions of the communication protocols, and you find it. There's really no other way to describe it. It's a smoking gun, and it's written right into the code.
Check this out. Registered address 40200. This isn't just some random bit of code. It is mandated by the new standard. Its official function is to limit maximum active power. So what does that mean? It means the utility now has a remote control. They can dial your solar production down to 50%, 10%, or even shut it off completely. And not just during some grid emergency. They can do it anytime, for any reason, just by sending a command. It's a kill switch for your power plant.
And it gets even crazier. It's not just about control. There's also a surveillance piece. The new standard requires a function called mirrored metering. Okay, so before, the utility could only see the leftover power you sent back to the grid. They had a blind spot. They had no idea how much power your panels were actually making or how much you were using yourself. Well, mirrored metering eliminates that blind spot. Now they can see everything. Your inverter basically becomes a second virtual meter inside your own house, reporting directly to them.
Okay, so you have to be asking yourself, why? Why would the utilities want this much control? Why would they want this kind of visibility into your private home? Well, like so many things, it seems to come down to money.
If you look at the regulatory filings, the utilities are pretty open about it. They're worried about revenue erosion. You know, people with solar are buying less of their product. So if they have all this super detailed data on how much you're making and using yourself, it gives them the ammunition they need to create new fees. Things like grid access charges. They even have a term for it. Load masking. That's their fancy way of saying, we can't see what you're doing behind the meter. So by getting this visibility, they can protect their business model.
And this isn't just a California thing. This standard is spreading like wildfire. It started there with something called Rule 21. But then, big multi-state utilities started pushing for the same rules in places like Minnesota and Colorado. And a lot of times, other states just take a shortcut. They skip the whole debate and just say, hey, any new solar equipment has to be on California's approved list. And just like that, boom, they've imported the entire control and surveillance package without anyone really noticing.
Now, if you already have solar, you might be thinking, phew, this doesn't affect me? Well, not so fast. This new standard has a very direct and very expensive impact on millions of people who already have solar panels on their roof.
See, you'd think this could just be a software update, right? But it's not that simple. Because all this new remote communication needs to be secure, it requires some really heavy-duty encryption. The analogy of trying to run the latest iOS on an old flip phone is perfect. The old inverters, they just don't have the horsepower. The CPU, the RAM, it's not there. So what's the result? Millions of perfectly functional inverters are suddenly obsolete. They're being turned into e-waste for no good reason. So you end up with this totally artificial cycle of, well, forced replacement. It's great for the manufacturers who get to sell more boxes. It's great for the utilities who get their control. But it's the consumers who foot the bill. And it's terrible for the environment. Just a mountain of unnecessary electronic waste.
And that's what this all boils down to. It leaves us with one really fundamental question. You spend all that money to put a power plant on your own roof. It's your system, your property. But at the end of the day, whose finger is really on the switch?